In the 19th century, China fought a civil war so devastating it killed 20 million people. You have never heard of it. The Taiping Heavenly Kingdom controlled a territory the size of Western Europe, with armies that outnumbered anything Napoleon ever commanded. Its leader believed he was the younger brother of Jesus Christ. And for 15 years, he was winning. The only reason you've never heard of this is because Britain and France decided to stop it. What if they didn't? This is what China looks like when the Heavenly Kingdom wins. In 1837, a young scholar named Hong Xiuquan failed his imperial civil service examination for the third time. He went home and had a breakdown, 6 weeks of fever and visions. When he came out of it, he believed God had spoken to him directly. He was the younger brother of Jesus Christ. He had been sent to purge China of demons, including, specifically, the Manchu Qing Dynasty that had ruled China since 1644. He was not as crazy as he sounds. The Qing Dynasty in 1850 was genuinely crumbling. The Opium Wars had humiliated it. A flood had destroyed crops along the entire Yellow River. Peasant resentment was volcanic. Hong gave that resentment a theology. Within 2 years, his God-worshipping society had become an army. By 1853, that army had captured Nanjing, China's former imperial capital, renamed it the Heavenly Capital, and controlled a swath of the Yangtze River Valley that held 40 million people. Here is the point of divergence. In 1856, Britain and France were looking for a pretext to force new trade concessions from China. They found one in a minor incident involving a ship called the Arrow. The resulting war let them deploy military force, and crucially, deploy it alongside the Qing against the Taiping. In this timeline, the Arrow incident doesn't escalate. A cooler-headed British consul in Canton diffuses it. Britain and France stay neutral. Without Western military technology in Qing hands, the provincial armies that destroyed the Taiping in our timeline never develop. The ever-victorious army, a Qing force trained and led by Western officers, including the famous Frederick Townsend Ward and later Charles Gordon, never exists. The Qing fall. The Taiping victory is not a clean triumph. It is a violent, chaotic consolidation that takes another decade. Hong Xiuquan himself dies in 1864, exhausted, possibly poisoned, much as in our timeline. But in our timeline, his death came as the Taiping were losing. Here, it comes as they are winning. The succession matters enormously. The man who emerges is Hong Rengan, Hong Xiuquan's cousin, a far more practically minded leader who had spent time in Hong Kong and understood Western governance. In our timeline, he arrived too late to save the rebellion. In this one, he becomes the first Prime Minister of the Heavenly Kingdom. Hong Rengan had a plan he called the New Government, a document that reads like a blueprint for a modernizing Asian state. Parliamentary councils. A postal service. A newspaper. Banks. Railways. Trade relations with Britain and the United States open within 5 years. Not on humiliating terms, on negotiated ones. The opium trade ends permanently. And the modernization Hong Rengan plan begins, brutal, uneven, deeply authoritarian, but continuous. China does not stop building for the next 150 years. Japan's Meiji Restoration still happens. When your enormous neighbor undergoes a violent revolution and emerges as a modernizing Christian theocracy, you accelerate your own modernization out of sheer strategic necessity. But the specific shape of Japanese expansionism changes completely. In our timeline, Japan's first imperial project was Korea, and the key rival for Korea was a weak, declining China. The First Sino-Japanese War of 1894 was a rout. Japan won in 8 months. This China is not weak. The Taiping Heavenly Kingdom, with 20 years of Western Protestant investment, has built a naval program. It has railways. It has modern artillery. Hong Rengan's successors are aggressively nationalist. The humiliations of the Qing era are taught in every school as the reason the old dynasty deserved to fall. The Sino-Japanese War still happens. But it lasts 5 years, not 8 months. It ends in a negotiated partition of influence over Korea rather than a Japanese victory. Neither side is humiliated. Both spend the next 2 decades rearming. Russia, watching 2 modernizing Asian powers grind to a stalemate, does not build the same imperial confidence that led to the Russo-Japanese War of 1904. The Trans-Siberian Railway is built, but with less urgency. Manchuria becomes a contested buffer zone rather than a Russian prize. The balance of power in Asia settles into a triangle: China, Japan, and the Western colonial powers, rather than the catastrophic Japanese expansionism our timeline produced. The Great War still happens in Europe. The same tangle of alliances, the same assassination in Sarajevo. But here is what changes: without a humiliated Japan and a prostrate China, no Asian power enters it as a subordinate. The Pacific is a standoff between equals. Nobody wins it quickly. And when it ends, the world has 2 industrial superpowers east of the Urals instead of 1. Here is the thing about a Christian theocracy ruling 400 million people who have practiced Confucianism, Buddhism, and Taoism for 3,000 years. The theology doesn't hold. Hong Xiuquan's original Christianity was sui generis, a fevered dream of Protestant evangelism filtered through Confucian concepts of heavenly mandate. His successors tried to make it orthodox. Western missionaries tried to make it Protestant. Chinese scholars tried to make it Confucian. The result is something none of the 3 groups wanted: a distinctly Chinese Christianity that absorbs ancestor veneration, Buddhist cosmology, and Confucian social structure into a Christian theological shell. Rome refuses to recognize it. The Protestant denominations fracture over whether to endorse it. But 400 million people practice it, and that settles the question pragmatically if not theologically. What emerges by the 1930s is the Heavenly Church, the dominant faith of 1 in 4 humans on earth, unrecognized by Rome and only partially recognized by the Protestant world, a genuine third branch of Christianity alongside Catholicism and Protestantism that grew from Chinese soil. The political consequences are profound. The Heavenly Kingdom's nationalism is inseparable from its theology. The Church and the state are the same institution. There is no Chinese Communist Party because there is no imperial collapse to radicalize a generation of intellectuals, but the authoritarianism is still present, embedded in the theocracy rather than the party. The world in 2026 has a different shape. The Cold War still happened. Not between the United States and the Soviet Union, but between the United States and the Heavenly Kingdom of China, which emerged from the Second World War as the dominant power in Asia. The Soviets exist but are a secondary player, never having industrialized ahead of a China that got its own industrial revolution 50 years earlier. China in this timeline never had a century of humiliation. No opium wars, no Japanese occupation, no cultural revolution, no Great Leap Forward famine. The Taiping consolidation was brutal. 30 million died in the final campaigns, but after that, 400 million people built continuously. The economy is the largest on Earth, as in our timeline, but the trajectory is different. It got there in 1990, not 2010. The political system is a constitutional theocracy. There are elections for the lower legislative council. There is no opposition party. The Heavenly Church appoints the upper chamber and has veto power over legislation that contradicts religious doctrine. Its citizens are wealthy, educated, and surveilled. They have freedom of commerce and very little freedom of conscience. In our world, the 19th century's deadliest war is a footnote. Most people have never heard the name Taiping. In this world, it is the origin story of the modern age. The moment a failing empire was replaced not by secularism or nationalism alone, but by a theology that fused the world's oldest continuous civilization with a faith born in the Middle East, and produced something neither tradition had imagined. 20 million people died in the Taiping Rebellion. In our timeline, their deaths were almost entirely erased from global memory, a footnote in Western history books, overshadowed by the American Civil War happening at the same time. But those 20 million people were fighting over the same questions that tore the West apart across 2 world wars: who governs? On whose authority? In whose name? The Qing answer was tradition and hierarchy. The Taiping answer was God and fire. The communist answer, which came 70 years later, was neither, it was the complete rejection of both. All 3 answers produced enormous suffering. The difference is that only one of them built a coherent civilization at scale. Whether a Christian theocracy was worth the cost of what it replaced, I genuinely cannot answer that. It depends entirely on whether you think the authority it rested on was real. That's not a historical question. That's a philosophical one. And I'd like to know where you land. Until the vault opens again, subscribe to the Alternate Archive.